I'm like exhausted. I feel like I haven't been sleeping.
Slapped around wherever the wind decides to take you. What a trip this whole thing is. They opened their arms up to us. They started feeding us food. They fed us drinks. Forrest just happens to be an outboard mechanic.
Our sailboat is all alone in the bay. Well, what a crazy night. We kind of survived it, although one of our lines didn't. After backpacking, we decided to see the world by sailboat. We sailed from the Great Lakes of Canada and made it to the Bahamas, where the unexpected happened.
Still not able to start the engine.
And we're gonna have a feast!
We got a dolphin fish! Let's go! It's just epic.
I'm so tired. I'm like exhausted. I feel like I haven't been sleeping for the last 2-3 nights. We're still here by Fresh Creek in Andros Island, and the wind's been doing like full-on 360s. We're quite protected from the east and the west, and even like northeast and south. But when it comes to southeast, that is the worst direction ever, because we're getting all the swell from the tongue of the ocean. Sure, the reef is breaking some of it, but it's just, oh, it just moves so much. It's like worse than sailing. So sleeping in this just is terrible. It's really hard. Actually, our crew, Will and Katie, are gone. So yesterday we just took their bed because they used to sleep further aft. And the motion was quite a bit better, but still super rolly, but better than the bow. So we're kind of stuck here. We want to go to shore, but the waves are so big and it makes it so hard to get in and off of the dinghy that, I don't know, we might just like stay on the boat and do some more editing, I guess. I'm tired. I want a nap.
So last night we tried a bit of a actually it was the night before that we tried this technique that sort of seemed to work. I don't remember what it's called, but basically you tie a line, another line that's about the length of your boat and another half to your anchor rod, in our case chain, and you run it to a winch towards the back of the boat, and that way you can, instead of you just being connected to your chain which goes down to your anchor and you're kind of getting slapped around wherever the wind decides to take you and the waves decide to push you, you can kind of control your boat a little bit more, so you can turn the back end so that it kind of rides up over the waves a little bit more, or the other way. So it seems like when we get it just right, it does mellow out things quite a bit, but it's been really difficult to get it just right. And also we're getting some currents from the river that's over here, so it's been really rocky and rolly, and sometimes rocky and rolly sideways, which that doesn't really make a huge difference for. There's another thing that we could probably try at some point, which is essentially tying something to the boom and swinging the boom over, and essentially almost like an anchor or something that will have some water tension, so as it rolls it will kind of slow the roll and just kind of make it more stable. But we don't really have anything to try that with right now. I think you need like a piece of plywood, and I understand kind of why people don't come here, you know, don't come to Andros. It's a beautiful place, it's super quiet, but there's like no anchorages. And the ones that are here, they're okay, but they're not very well protected. This one, as Alex was saying, is not protected from the southeast at all. If you had a very shallow draft, you can go upriver, but there's a lot of current. And if you go north of here to the spot we were at before, it's even more exposed from the north. So I kind of get why people just go other places. When you look at the Exumas or Eleuthera, it's filled with anchorages on both sides of all the islands, it seems. So you can almost always find a little spot to tuck away. Whereas here, you're just kind of stuck dealing with it, unless you want to leave in, for us, subpar conditions, because I don't want to take waves over the bow over and over again, because we're gonna get water inside our boat again. What a trip this whole thing is, you know, cruising. It's so full of ups and downs and highs and lows, and it's just so funny, really. I mean, so on the way over, we were planning on going to the Blue Hole, which is another couple miles up the river, and we're dinghying over, and all of a sudden the dinghy just starts revving up super high, and it's not pushing forward anymore. And so I think what's happened is the cotter pin is, or not the cotter pin, but there's a shear pin, I think, on these little outboards. And what happens is it's supposed to stop the prop from actually catching on something and breaking the prop. We got somebody driving by here. And so anyway, it's a plastic prop, so I assume what it's meant so that it doesn't tear up the gear case inside if it ever hits something hard. And so essentially the shear pin will break off first, and then the prop won't spin properly. So anyway, that happens. So we're about between here and our boat, like right in the middle, and we're about 0.5 nautical miles away from shore, and the same distance from our boat. And I'm swearing, I'm completely frustrated, and I mean, it just feels like so many things are going wrong. So now we have no working engine at all in our boat or in our dinghy, which is very not convenient while we're here in the Bahamas, because everything is far from where we can anchor. So essentially we're paddling into shore, and we're about to stop off at this rocky point, essentially the only spot that looked like we could put our dinghy, and this lady starts waving us over. And so we start paddling towards her, and we just met like the nicest couple, Johnny and Forrest. They opened their arms up to us. They started feeding us food. They fed us drinks, and Forrest gave us a ride to the Naval Academy, or the naval base here, where they have like free water to fill up, all filtered and everything, so we don't have to be worried about getting sick or anything like that. It's kind of funny, you know, Forrest just happens to be an outboard mechanic. So just what are the odds, right? Like there's nobody here that does mechanics really at all that I've heard of, and like most people outsource their stuff back to the States or NASA or something, and everything that you would need to get here is going to take weeks. And yet we just happened to paddle over to an outboard mechanics place. Some of the friendliest people I've met on this trip already. And it's just kind of funny how life is sometimes. You're down in the dumps, you're completely just devastated and just completely frustrated with your life and your current circumstances. And then all of a sudden, something like this happens, and it completely changes your view and gives you new hope for the future, I guess.
In the islands, food arrives with the mailboat. So once a week, the grocery stores get fully stocked, and you want to go to make sure to get what you need. But you never really know which things they'll get. Bread was a little bit for like that basic of a bread loaf, $4.50.
Yeah.
Produce was about $10 for 4 onions, 2 tomatoes, 2 green peppers. So not too bad, I guess. We've got fresh stuff.
Okay. Just to be on the safe side. This is a 3.3.
Yeah,
leave a big bundle on there so you can see it good.
Oh, wow.
As if you just turned that over and it popped
It
off.
fell off. I was pulling on it and
Well, good news, it's just a shear pin. So Forrest is gonna try to make us up a couple, or at least one anyway, out of some nails or something that he's got, and it looks like we're gonna be good to go. We won't have to paddle all the way back to the dinghy.
I think it will.
Yeah, it needs to line up just right, I guess, eh? There you go.
So it should line up this way too, I'm thinking.
Almost. Right there. I gotta go all the way.
I think I'm not holding the button out enough.
Oh, that was in gear, right?
I'm into the whole
I keep wanting to go. Well. There we go.
Ah, awesome.
There it is.
Yeah, thanks, Forrest.
Definitely working.
Like I said, give me your address in Canada. I'll
You can
send
send the
you
bill, yeah.
Well, as you can see, we didn't make it back to the boat. The shear pin, I think, snapped again, and we were just a little ways from Johnny's and Forrest's place. So that would have been quite a long paddle back to the boat, so we decided to just turn back around and we're hoping to try to fix it. But then they're like, "No, you guys stay overnight, have some food with us, get some rest, and tomorrow we're gonna work on the outboard." So right now our sailboat is left all alone in the bay. It's kind of weird. It's like we've never actually left it at the anchor like this. So, I mean, the anchor is really well set, so it should be fine, but it's a little scary to a certain extent. We had a pretty sweet supper, had a really nice shower, and I'm gonna sleep in a bed. It's a square bed, and it's not gonna move around, so I'm quite excited about this.
Oh, we finally made it to the boat. Not that I really wanted to come back to the boat, because the boat's been and just slapping us all over the place. The wind is coming from what would be somewhat of a protected area, but the swell is coming right into the gap between the little islands. So we're getting really rock and rolled. But I think I've got a bit of a solution with this line here connected to a pipe hitch just ahead of the snubber, going to this winch on the outside of the boat and to this cleat. And this is hopefully going to keep us bow into the swell, so we're not quite slamming around side to side quite as much. It's going to be a really rocky night. But essentially, anyway, we made it here, so that's really good. I was starting to wonder because we tried leaving last night, but the little cotter pin that we put in was, I think, too small and too malleable, so the thing just basically bent around the little shaft and made it very difficult to get the prop off. But we finally got it off this morning. Thanks again to our new friends Forrest and Johnny for being such great hosts. You guys saved us. Like, we can't thank you enough. And really thank you very much, Forrest, for helping us get our engine back together. We ended up cutting a nail and used that as our new shear pin, and it got us here. So we're gonna test it out more when it's a little calmer and we can actually get on and off the boat a little more, but at least we got here. And we also got water. He brought us to get some more water, so that's really handy. We're not going to be dehydrated or anything like that. And as you can see, we're still rocking a lot, even though I got this thing set up, so I might need to pull it in some more. But it does help. I've noticed if I get it lined up with the swell just right, it does help quite a bit. So I'm hoping that we might actually be able to sleep with this thing hooked up, or the swell will change direction to be where the wind is coming from, which would be really handy. Well, this is day 9, anchored out here in front of Andros, anchored in front of Fresh Creek River, somewhat protected from the coral and the islands. It's been interesting because we only had a few days, most of them with our friends Will and Katie, where we were able to get off the boat and enjoy ourselves a little bit. And the rest of the time we've been pretty much cooped up on the boat, making sure that it's pointed into the wind directly, or pointed into the swell, which seems to be the bigger issue here right now. Today was supposed to be our protected day for the heavier wind, and I guess I just didn't look at the angle of the swell closely enough and didn't really plan that well ahead. Also, because we don't have an engine, it's a little more nerve-wracking picking up anchor when we know it's set well already. So that was kind of our thoughts behind it. But we're learning a lot throughout this somewhat uncomfortable stay. For one thing, how to make ourselves more comfortable with that setup, as well as paying very close attention to the wind and more importantly in this case the swell, to make sure that you're in a protected area. Also, just picking an anchorage, you know, like we chose this one because it was kind of the only one, and there was really limited choices here on Andros. So it's going to be nice to be like in the Exumas or something where there's a lot more anchorages. At least this is what I'm hoping. So I think we're leaving on Tuesday is what our hope is. So let's hope that'll work out, because tonight's going to be a rough one.
Well, what a crazy night. We kind of survived it, although one of our lines didn't. We got like waves up to 1.6 meters pretty much all night. Winds of 19-20 sustained, gusting to 30 some, I think. So it was pretty intense, but at least Corey had the line set up so that the boat wouldn't move too much, so I did manage to get a bit of sleep. But then all of a sudden we had one of our snubber line that was running aft to stabilize the boat that just kind of snapped. So the boat's motion then became pretty much not really fun. Haven't really been sleeping since then. Now we're gonna try to figure out another line to run to the chain. I'm tired. But yeah, I'm pretty much done with Andros Island. I'm ready to get out of here. This anchorage has been nothing but rock and roll. So let's get out of here soon. Oh, it was so nice getting off the boat after all that. We just went to the little island not too far from here, walked on the beach, explored, saw a bunch of turtles. Not a movie, unfortunately. They're way too fast. Even saw a dolphin.
What do you got there?
Well, we were looking for some lobsters, but instead we ended up finding a bunch of conchs. So maybe we're gonna have a really good supper tonight, but first off we've gotta try to figure out if we're allowed to get them. So Corey's gonna look it up online and we'll figure it out if they're big enough for us.
And what kind of conch are those?
Queen conchs.
King helmet conch?
So I've been told. They're like super different. And all of them are like this. It's kind of funny. The regular conch in the Bahamas seems like you want to have a flared lip. So like something wide right here. But the queen conch is a little bit different. And we found, I mean, its population has gone down a little bit, but it's not giving us any information as for Bahamas specific.
So we thought it was a queen conch because that's what somebody said it was, but you can't trust everybody. So from further research, I found out essentially they're not very good for eating. So I think we're just going to throw them all back because apparently they're quite bitter, and the main reason people take them is for their shells. So let's let these guys live.
Bye, little guy. How's it going?
Oh, better now. The boat's not... Seems like every time the tide is going in, the water just gets super gnarly here, even if there's no waves. It was actually worse here than it was when we filmed it the other day during the storm with 30 knots and 1.6 meter waves. Anyway, we brought two more jugs to fill up at the naval base over here. That was a long walk, but thankfully we got a ride back once they were full, so that was nice. And we also did some laundry and basically went into town because we've been pretty cooped up on the boat lately.
We wanted to welcome our newest patron, Mark Thompson. Thank you so much for becoming a wild guardian and helping support these videos.
Thanks for joining, Mark. We'd also like to let all of our subscribers know that there's a few ways that you could support the channel if you'd like to do something more than just subscribing. We have our Patron, as mentioned. We also have YouTube members. And we recently launched our swag page on our webpage. So be sure to check that out if you're interested in some sweet new t-shirts. And all the links will be down below in the description, so check those out. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Because when you're pulling up the chain and all of a sudden your bow drops into a wave,
I can walk around without holding on to anything. Yes. We saw barely nobody in Bimini Island, Gunky, and Andros Island, but now there's so many more boats. Look at this!
it's time to have some fun.
This is the life.